Hi all, welcome everyone to the Practical Experience Requirements, or as we call it, PER question and answer session presented by CPABC, the Chartered Professional Accountants of British Columbia. My name is Rebecca Dernfeld and I am the Senior Student Recruitment Officer, and I want to thank all of you for joining us here today. My role at CPABC is to work with the student recruitment team to inform and inspire future CPAs. We advise students like yourself on how to become a CPA through the 3 E's: education, exam, and experience. In today's session, we are focusing on the practical experience requirements of becoming a CPA. Before we proceed, I would like to respectfully acknowledge this land on which we are learning and working today. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. We do this land acknowledgement to recognize that these territories are still home to many Indigenous peoples, to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples. I thank you for reflecting with me. So you may have seen this graphic before, and I find it very useful because it really, to me, shows the flow of how our program works and how it will be for you as what we call a candidate in our program once you are accepted into the professional education program. So the professional education program is designed to tackle what we call 3 E's: education, exam, and experience. Now, the program, if you take it on a part-time basis and you would be working full-time, you would likely take about 2.5 years to complete this program. And you can think of it as a graduate level type of program. So it consists of 6 modules, as you'll see here. So we have Core 1 and Core 2, Elective 1 and Elective 2, Capstone 1 and Capstone 2. Now, you are required, once you're in this program, to successfully complete all of these 6 modules before you are eligible to write the common final exam. Now, that is also known as the CFE, and it is a 3-day exam. So let's take a look quickly at each of these modules. So each module typically takes 2 months to complete, and you complete them in sequential order, so one after the other. You can expect to spend between 15 to 20 hours a week working on the module tasks, and most candidates complete the modules while they're working full-time. Now, each of the first 4 modules has online assignments and quizzes, and then there is a final exam in person. Now, if you need a little bit more time to complete the modules because perhaps you have family or other types of commitments in your life, there is an option to take an extended version of these modules, which gives you twice the amount of time, so 4 to 5 months to complete each module. Now, on the other end, there is also the option to speed up the educational portion of becoming a CPA, and we call it the fast track option. So the fast track option allows you to take Core 1 and Core 2 concurrently, followed by Elective 1 and Elective 2 concurrently. So you're taking those at the same time. Now, this option is best suited for candidates who are not working and can study full-time while you're taking those core and elective modules at the same time, the 2 core together and the 2 electives together. But it's also important to know that you have that 3rd E, which is your experience. So you do need to complete a total of 30 months of work experience called the Practical Experience Requirement, or PER, regardless if you move quickly through our education modules. So that's why we normally recommend that individuals find an accounting job or position in a public practice firm or in an industry role, and they work and gain their level of competency in their position while they take the modules part-time. So if possible, you could wrap up your experience and your education around the same time, and then you would write your common final exam. And if all goes well, you would then receive your CPA designation. Now, our session today focuses on the practical experience requirements. So if you want to learn more about the professional education program and you want to be able to ask further questions, please do sign up for one of those information sessions. We do run them on a regular basis, and you can find those sessions listed on our sessions and events webpage with CPABC. So how does this all fit together? We've talked about this program that you would be admitted into, and we want you to understand that there are a couple of administrative bodies that support you through this process. So we are the Chartered Professional Accountants of British Columbia. We are an organizational body, a professional organization that supports your journey through the practical experience requirements to become a CPA. There is also the Western School of Business. The Western School of Business is the school that is going to provide you with the modules and the common final exam to complete the educational component of becoming a CPA. If you decide to continue to reside in British Columbia or the Western provinces, you would then be enrolled with the CPA Western School of Business. If you decide to move to another province to become a CPA, or while you're becoming a CPA, then you would have to speak with the school if you've already started with them to figure out how you would continue that process. Also, if you move to another province, you would then become a member or engage with the CPA provincial body in that province as well. But do know, if you stay in British Columbia, these would be the two bodies that you would be engaging with on your journey to becoming a CPA. So once you complete all of these 3 E's, the education, the exam, and the experience, you're ready to apply for membership as a designated CPA. And at that time, you would become a joint member of CPA BC and CPA Canada. Okay, so I'm going to now turn it over to Suzanne for an overview of the practical experience requirements.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Rebecca. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We know that the practical experience requirements always generates a lot of questions. So hopefully once we complete the content today, you'll feel like you are walking away with a lot more clarity and a lot more understanding on these particular requirements. So what you see before you is another graphic that we like to call our blocks. And this is a helpful graphic because it pulls together all the key requirements that make up the practical experience requirements. So we have the minimum 30-month duration. And I always like to remind candidates that it's a minimum amount of duration that you will need to be working and progressing towards the requirements. Now, sometimes candidates require a little bit longer than 30 months in order to develop the needed competencies. So you can always consider it to be a minimum requirement that you're looking to have under your belt. Next, we have the mentorship requirement, the ongoing support of a mentor that you are going to have throughout the minimum 30 months. And then the competencies, which we have them divided into 2 areas, which are the technical competencies, which are those hard skills, those hard technical skills that you will need to have in place upon completion. And then what we call enabling competencies, which are those professional skills that pull together all the technical skills in a very polished package as a professional. So again, this is just a helpful graphic to, at a snapshot, pull together all the key requirements for practical experience. But not to worry, we're going to be going into each one of these in a little bit more detail so that you'll have a better understanding of each. Okay, so starting with the two reporting paths that candidates have to reporting their experience. So we have both of them outlined here. So we'll take each one of them in turn and explain what each one is about. So in broad sense, these are the two options that you have to reporting your experience. So all candidates need to choose either one or the other. So let's start with the first one here. So the pre-approved program route, or PPR, as we like to call it for short. And the best way to think of this route is it is experience that has been approved upfront by the profession. So we have staff who will work with employers to create a competency map that articulates exactly how the exit requirements are going to be met over the course of this 30-month duration. So it is a very prescribed and a very specific path that has been carved out for this particular route. So because it is so specific and because it is so prescribed, it is understood and it's expected that once candidates start on this particular path, that they will complete it in its entirety in order to meet the exit requirement. So that, in a nutshell, describes or what characterizes the pre-approved program route. So if an employer has not been approved upfront, then candidates in this instance will be reporting through what we call the experience verification route, or EVR, as you will hear it referred to for short. And this route is characterized by experience that is reported as it is gained at an employer of choice. So a candidate may move around to different positions. They may even move around to different companies. We nickname this route to be self-directed because it is the candidate who is carving out and deciding how they are going to complete the exit requirements based upon where they would like their career to go. So in these graphics, what you see is really just an overview of the reporting process that candidates will need to complete and the interval at which the reporting is happening. So really what it outlines here is that there are also a lot of similarities between these two routes as well. So the similarities are that regardless of which route you are following, all experience will need to be paid, it will need to be relevant, and it will need to be progressive, meaning it's always growing in nature. Next, all of the experience needs to be adequately supervised. You will be reporting semi-annually, and you see that here, these reporting intervals that need to happen on approximately every 6 months or so. You will be working with a mentor in both of these routes. You will need to also submit your experience to the profession for assessment as well. So it has its differences, but then there are also some commonalities between these two routes as well. So I hope that quick overview gives you a sense of the two reporting paths and the two options that you're going to have once you begin reporting. Okay, so on to the practical experience competency map. And this competency map is comprised of 6 technical competencies and 5 enabling competencies. So what's interesting is that this competency map is not only the foundation of the practical experience requirements, but it's also the foundation of the education component as well. So we do have this consistent foundation between both these worlds. So the 6 technical competencies include financial reporting, management accounting, strategy and governance, taxation, finance, and audit and assurance. And then we have the enabling competencies, which again are these professional skills, this polish and integrity that you're going to develop in becoming a future CPA. So that includes acting ethically and demonstrating professional values, solving problems and adding value, communicating, managing self, and collaborating and leading. So when we assess the experience and as candidates are progressing through the requirements in these areas, we assess the experience across a proficiency continuum of 0 through to a level 2. Again, understanding that candidates are going to start at a more foundational level type of work, and where the work oftentimes that they're starting with is almost clerical or even administrative, very much in nature. But once they progress, then they start to develop an aptitude and a competence, and now perhaps they're starting to do some analysis in the work they are doing. And that is where they would be demonstrating a level 1 in their work through to a level 2, where they are now taking the results of that analysis and they're making decisions based upon it. So now they are demonstrating these higher level competencies. So that in a very general sense is what is naturally going to happen as a candidate progresses. And again, it's also expected that they will progress to these higher levels. So with that in mind, let's have a look now at the exit requirements for the practical experience. So I always like to reinforce this idea that what I'm about to outline is, again, these are exit requirements. So that means over the course of at least the 30 months duration that you're slowly going to be progressing towards meeting these requirements. You don't have to feel like every time you report that you're demonstrating these, but rather that you're inching your way and you're getting closer and closer to demonstrating them by the time you reach the end. So the key requirements that we are looking to ensure that you have in place by the end is what we call the core, the depth, and the breadth competency areas. So let's have a look at each one of these in turn so that you have a better understanding of each. Okay, so starting with core. So the core competencies we refer to as the financial reporting area as well as management accounting. And these form really the foundation, and that's why we use the term core, because once you are a CPA and you're out in the market, employers will expect that you have certain foundational skills to be able to serve their companies. And so that's where the need for competence within in and across these areas comes in. So again, what we're looking to see upon completion is that at least 3 level 1s or greater have been developed in this area. So you recall that level 1 shows you have the competence to complete analysis with sufficient aptitude. Okay, so that's what we're looking to see in this foundational area. Okay, so moving on to depth. So with depth, this we're referring to one piece of the puzzle, so to speak. And so this is one of the particular technical competency areas. So in this particular example, it's finance, but your area of depth, it could be anything. It could be anything that your role focuses upon in particular. So that's going to vary for everyone. And your particular area of focus could also be financial reporting or management accounting. So you may cross over with the core competencies, and that's absolutely fine. You can certainly do so. Again, it really just depends on what the focus of your role is. So with depth, again, we're looking at one of those competency areas, and we're looking to ensure that all the sub areas that are included in this have all been developed to at least a level 1, and that 2 have been developed to a level 2. So again, this level 2 is the highest level proficiency in the measurement, in the continuum that we have. And again, this is ensuring that you have a chance to utilize your professional judgment, in particular in this area of depth. So it allows you to develop a little bit more expertise in one of these particular areas. And then finally, we have the area of breadth. So the breadth requirement is looking to ensure that you are a nice, well-rounded CPA that has had exposure across several areas of accounting. So we are looking to stretch across 8 competency areas. So again, upon completion, we're looking to see that at least 4 level 1s have been developed. So again, you've got that capability to be functional, complete that analysis across some of these areas. And then we're looking to see that at least 4 level 2s have been developed, again, stretching across these other areas. So again, it's just ensuring that you've got a little exposure and expertise in other areas of accounting or finance. And I do certainly note that for candidates who are completing the experience verification route, so that was the route that it was self-directed by the candidate, that sometimes this area of breadth can take a little bit of extra planning, a little bit of strategizing and talking with your supervisor, working with your employer, to see what other areas of the company you could be exposed to and stretch out to so that you can meet this breadth requirement. So little extra planning that's needed in this particular area. Okay, and then on to the enabling competencies, which again, these were the professional skills that you are looking to hone and foster and nurture and develop throughout 30 months. So they're displayed here in a little bit of a different format. We've got a wheel format here, but it's the same content. So we have the acting ethically and demonstrating professional values, solving problems and adding value, communicating, collaborating and leading, and managing self. So in the reporting, you will have questions that you will need to answer within the enabling competencies area. And they're very much self-reflection based, and having you look at the situations that are coming up in these areas and really reflecting on your behavior and how you are maneuvering through and carrying yourself through these situations. So because we need to ensure that you are a strong professional once you reach completion, we need to ensure that all of these areas have been developed to the highest level proficiency, which is that level 2. But again, you're going to slowly progress through these throughout your minimum 30 months. So common questions that we will often receive when candidates are first starting the program, or like yourselves looking to start the program very soon, is that, you know, I'm starting in an entry-level type position, and I'm just kicking things off, you know, in my accounting career. You know, does my work qualify? And oftentimes when you first begin and you have that very first entry-level type position in the world of accounting, quite often your role is made up of the following duties. So oftentimes It is inputting journal entries. It's perhaps doing some reconciliations, usually bank reconciliations, or you could be diving into the balance sheet, income statement, that kind of thing. Maybe you're doing some GST returns or tax installment remittance, running reports. You're starting to help with the year-end audit, gathering some of that information. So again, this is a very, very common starting point, and it's very necessary. It is certainly a necessary starting point, again, to get that foundation in a career in accounting. But what is important to remember that even though this is a common starting point, in order for you to begin reporting your experience, we need to see that you're stretching past these types of duties. So if the bulk of your job description is comprised of these, we would consider this type of position to be non-qualifying. So you're not yet ready to begin reporting. It's a necessary starting point, but in order to start reporting, we need you to start stretching just a little bit more into demonstrating at least one level 1 technical competency in your work. So that could be starting to prepare the financial statements. That could be starting to prepare some even personal tax returns that we need you to start shifting in order to enter into the requirements that are reportable. Okay, so that leads us to common duties that are within qualifying positions. So what is the direction that you are looking to step towards? Well, the following would be common duties or common themes that we see in qualifying positions. So that can include the analysis of internal processes and providing recommendations for improvements, reviewing accounting policies for journal entry input or review, analyzing inputs for budgeting and assessing implications of budgets, whether that's overruns or shortcomings, preparing financial statements, including note disclosures, or maybe it's the preparation of corporate or personal tax returns. Okay, so again, this is the direction that you will need to be working towards in order for this position to be considered falling into this qualifying type realm. So earlier on, we shared with you the mentorship requirement. And although it's a requirement, a lot of times I like to think of it more as an opportunity that you are going to have to be supported by a CPA member throughout your practical experience requirements. So it's so wonderful that you have a chance to be working alongside, not alongside, but supported by a CPA who you will meet with, who's going to help you in the development of your competencies. So it's a wonderful assistance that you're going to have throughout this journey. So your mentor, they're going to support your overall competency development. So all of the technical competencies that we were chatting about, especially the enabling competencies, since many of the values and the ethics of the CPA profession are really anchored in those enabling competencies. So there'll be of particular support in those areas, but that's what they're there for, is to support you in that journey. You'll meet with your mentor at least 2 times per year, hopefully more. I talk to candidates and mentors who often meet on a quarterly basis, and that's great. If you can meet more often, that's only encouraged. It just helps you keep up the momentum of working together. It keeps you both accountable for your meeting takeaways, just helps you keep up the flow in your progression. But aside from that, the requirements for a mentor is that they must be a CPA in good standing. They must complete a short orientation with us, and they also must register with us as well. So these are the key requirements we are looking to ensure are in place for a mentor. And the other last piece that's important for you to note for today is that when you enter the professional education program or PEP, you will need to ensure that you are listing or naming who your mentor is going to be within the first 90 days of beginning PEP. So that's 3 months. That can be a long time or a short time, depending on how you look at it. But what we always like to share during this session is that if you don't yet work with a CPA or perhaps have connections in your network to a CPA who you could approach to be your mentor, then now is a great time to start the relationship building process or starting to network to meet a mentor, because sometimes that can take time to develop a relationship. So we have events that we host and that are open to prospective students to come meet a mentor. So we certainly try to facilitate the connection and meeting opportunity as much as possible, but certainly a planning note that you can make for yourselves that takes just a little bit of time and attention to get in place. So next on to the Prohibition of Practice, which is one of our CPABC bylaws. And we like to share this at these sessions since we recognize that everyone is entering the CPA program at a different point in their careers. So for example, some candidates are beginning fresh. You know, you're stepping into your first accounting positions ever, while other candidates have been working and have been growing their skills in accounting or finance even before joining the program. So we certainly recognize everyone is starting at a different point. But what is important to know is that once you do become a student or a candidate with CPABC, this Prohibition of Practice bylaw prohibits you to offer various pieces. So let's go through the list. So you are not permitted to be self-employed in public practice, to be working in an organization that is not registered with CPABC who is providing public practice services, or to be working in an organization engaged in public practice that is not a registered firm that is owned by a family member. So if any of these pieces are of relevance to you, it's just important that you reach out to us as soon as possible so that we can help with your decision points and how you can move forward from here. So next, on to prior experience. And again, this is an area that we will commonly receive questions about, especially for candidates, again, who they are stepping into the program with already having developed skills and abilities in the area of accounting and finance, having perhaps worked in positions even before joining the program. So we thought we would spend just a little bit of time talking about what our policies are in regards to prior experience. So when we say prior experience, we're just referring to experience that's been gained before you have stepped onto the program as a PEP candidate. So our policy is that we can accept up to 12 months of prior experience pending an assessment. So that means that your experience will need to be reported just like you would report current experience. So we will use the same platform, we will use the same reporting tool where you're going to eventually report your current experience. You're going to report your prior experience through that same reporting platform. And we need all the great details that you would include in a current experience report as well. So we need for you to outline what the scope of your role was, all of the duties that you completed in that work. So we will assess that. And again, pending that assessment, you could receive at a maximum 12 months of the 30 months that can be credited there, meaning at least 18 months must be done actively currently while you are on the program, bearing in mind that you're still going to need to progress and meet those exit requirements upon completion that we were talking about. So next, all experience must be gained in positions that ended in either the last 7 years or 5 years if it was in a public accounting capacity. So what that means is that 12 months must have been done within a 7-year window of time. So that's not to say that it's just the last 12 months that you've worked perhaps in that prior position, but any time within that 7-year window of time is how far back that we can go. So that 12 months could be done at whatever point within that window. So I hope that helps. I know this is again an area of common questions. Another policy that relates to prior experience is that you must be currently employed and up and running in the PERT system. So PERT is our acronym for the Practical Experience Reporting Tool. So that means that you must be actively employed. You must have a profile created. So everything needs to be set up and that you're up and running in order for you to be able to report that prior experience. And then lastly, and again, this is really a planning point and something for you to note and not forget, is that if you are choosing to report this prior experience, that the supervisor to whom you reported to in that position, they are going to need to verify that experience. And what we mean by verify is attest to the accuracy of your statements that you include in the experience report. So they're attesting that, yes, everything that you've outlined is an accurate reflection of what you carried out in the role. So we share this so that in case it's relevant to you, that you keep your connections, stay in contact, in other words, with your supervisors, so that they're aware that there could be an experience report coming to them to be verified, and so keep those connections in case that's going to be needed in your instance.